All right, NBA season just around the corner. I am extremely excited. Today we're going to be talking about contenders, but we're not going to talk about what makes them contenders. We're going to talk about why they won't win. Now, of course, the word contender is extremely subjective. Majority of them will be in the Western Conference, but if I consider a team a contender, you don't. It is what it is, right? It's not that deep. We're going to talk about a lot of teams here. If I leave someone out, I don't mean to offend your favorite team. It is what it is, right? And we might as well start with the popular team. So let's start with the Lakers. And again, if you don't believe the Lakers are a contender, I'm not even here to argue with you, right? But in the context of the conversation, I think we should include the Lakers. Now, the Lakers, you can make an argument, have the best big three in the NBA. I'm not making that argument. I'm saying you could make it. But they probably have the best big three in the NBA when it comes to shot creation. Luka, crazy by himself. LeBron, crazy by himself. And the strides Austin Reeves took last year as an on-ball player, not a lot of teams have that level of shot creation on their roster. So when I look at this Lakers team, right, immediately you point to perimeter defense as somewhere they're lacking, for sure. But when I look at that level of creation, what do you want to put with that level of creation? Finishing. And finishing comes in scoring or shooting and finishing at the rim. When I look at this Lakers team, I think they are lacking the adequate finishing around those level of shot creators. And what makes it complicated with the Lakers is you look at someone like LeBron, probably the best finisher on this team. But do we really think LeBron's going to completely buy into that role? Maybe he will. Maybe he will. And I think that would be the best version of this team. LeBron setting screens, LeBron cutting, LeBron maybe even in a dunker spot. Like, that to me would be the best version of this team. But I don't even think it's fair to ask LeBron to be that player at this age. Even someone like Austin Reeves, who is a decent shooter, right, is a decent off-ball player, but would much rather get into his bag, operate in the mid-range, take pull-up threes, right? That's his bag. Rui, corner three-point shooter, okay, that's fine, but he's still not a volume guy. He's still not someone that teams are afraid of in that corner. Maybe they should be, right? And maybe this year we'll finally reach that point where he's treated like a real knockdown shooter. But as of right now, no one's really scared of Rui, even though he's knocking that down. Jared Vanderbilt, probably not as good of a finisher you would hope for his size and athleticism. Gabe Vincent, I mean, obviously Ayton as well, right? Ayton is supposed to be that guy that's going to finish everything. We'll see. But when I look at this team, I feel like they're void of that finisher. And again, maybe I'm not giving Ayton enough credit, especially with his mid-range jumper as well. But like, this team doesn't have the elite knockdown sniper. Maybe Dalton Connect develops into that, but they don't have that. They don't have the elite rim rocking presence unless they're going to be playing Jackson Hayes a lot. This team actually has like a bunch of connectors, and that's usually a very positive thing, but not necessarily when you have LeBron and Luka. You know, when you have these ball dominant players, you want people to finish off of them. Instead, they got Marcus Smart, who like is a very decent player, is going to help get the ball from here to here. And I'm not saying you don't need those players, but Marcus Smart, Jake LaRavia, Gabe Vincent, even Maxi Kleber, like these are connectors. Like if you just look at the history of LeBron and Luka, LeBron had J.R. Smith, LeBron had Kevin Love, LeBron had plethora of just snipers around him. You look at Luka, he had all the lob threats in the world. So maybe this is me being contrarian, just going with something other than perimeter defense, but that just really stands out to me when I look at this team. They got a bunch of guys that are going to create, and then how many guys that are actually going to finish the play. So that's what I'll say for the Lakers. Let's move on to the Houston Rockets, another one where I'm going to be a little bit of a contrarian, because people are going to look at the Rockets and they're going to say three-point shooting, of course. But I kind of feel like they can cobble it together a little bit between Kevin Durant, Dorian Finney-Smith, Jabari Smith, Reed Shepherd. Is that enough shooting? Probably not, right? They probably won't be one of the best shooting teams in the NBA. But can they be a middle-of-the-pack three-point shooting team? Maybe, right? But something that stands out to me looking at this team, who's getting downhill? Now, of course, Amen Thompson is. But besides Amen Thompson, whether in the fast break or in the half court, who's getting to the rim? besides Amin Thompson. KD doesn't really get to the rim anymore. Of course, Şengün is going to get his post touches, get to the rim in that way, but who is taking the ball from the perimeter to the rim on this team? Because last year it was Amin Thompson, and it was Jalen Green, and it was somewhat Freddie, and it was somewhat Dillon Brooks, more so in the fast break. But you look at this team, and they are like extremely athletic, but at the same time really have no rim pressure. And last year, one of their big strengths was being a top 10 team in the NBA in fast break points. Obviously, you're going to slow down with Kevin Durant in general, but I don't know. And the cool thing about basketball, right, is all of it's connected. So, you know, you push the fast break, maybe you get more three-point opportunities. You get to the rim more, you collapse the defense, create more three-point opportunities. I don't really know, again, besides Amin Thompson, who's doing that on his team. Jalen Green, regardless of how you feel about him as a player, him and Amin Thompson coming at you on the fast break was something you had to deal with. Now, maybe it just leads to Şengün getting the ball more on the fast break, and maybe that's how it works out. He pushes the ball up, outlets the ball, and they get easy buckets that way. But in terms of half court, getting to the rim and pushing the ball on the fast break, the speed in which they were able to get to last year, I don't know. I have a lot of doubts about this team all of a sudden, but I'll leave it there for now. Again, am I being contrarian? Maybe, right? Maybe I could have just said three-point shooting, but rim pressure, I think this team is going to be lacking that. KD doesn't get to the rim. We'll see with Reed Sheppard. We'll see. Next up, I want to group two teams together, and we're going to stay in the Western Conference. Again, majority West here. And we're going to put the Nuggets and the Warriors together because I feel like they are both lacking the same thing. Maybe you could argue other things as well, but I think they are both lacking one more real shot creator. Now, these are both teams where you might not even notice it because their systems are so built in that they run very well, right? Obviously, you got Jokic by himself is a system by himself. Steph Curry and everything revolving around him is a system by itself, so it doesn't always show up. But there's moments, in key critical moments, where it shows up that they don't have anyone else to go get a bucket. Now, Jamal Murray can go get a bucket, Jimmy Butler can go get a bucket, but everyone else is reliant on Steph Curry or Jimmy Butler getting them a look, or Jokic or Jamal Murray getting them a look, right? And it's not a problem until it's a problem. And it's why I always stress the pivotal role that Jordan Poole played on that championship team. Because there were a lot of moments where the Steph Curry, Draymond Green two-man game not working, right? Teams are sniffing that out. They know exactly what's coming. Okay, someone just go get a bucket. I know what the play is. I know what the read is supposed to be, but I'm going to go get a bucket right now because my team needs a bucket right now. And Jordan Poole, and to a lesser extent, Andrew Wiggins, I say to a lesser extent, but he had the obvious big-time game doing that in Game 5, but on a consistent basis to a lesser extent in Wiggins. But Jordan Poole was that guy to say, I'm going to go get a bucket. And they got Jimmy Butler now, who's better than Wiggins, who's better than Poole, but they don't got Clay and they don't got Poole. And to me, they're missing that one other player to go do something, which is why I feel like they should try to get that out of Kuminga. It's not going to be the same as a guard or as a Poole or a Clay or anything like that. But that's why I feel like they should be trying to get that out of Kuminga, but that's a subject for many, many days that we've already talked about. So I feel like that's what they're lacking. For the Nuggets, I guess the Warriors have the possibility in Pods being that as well. Maybe Pods can develop into that, but it seems like Pods is better in the role where he doesn't have to be that guy. He's better in the connecting role, and he can get you 20 points off of other players. But going out and getting it himself, that's not really Pods. I feel like, I said this in a recent video too, but Julian Strawther maybe represents that for the Nuggets, right? If he takes a step, I feel like they can be the best team in the NBA. If he really becomes a reliable bucket off the bench, they could be the best team in the NBA. But without that, I feel like they are lacking that a little bit. And again, it's not going to show up, right? Because they can go to 7 games with OKC without that player. Well, actually, it wasn't without that player because Julian Strawther had big games in that series, right? Or at least one big game. I think he had a big game 6. I could probably look it up, but I think it was game 6. And If they get that consistent performance from him, they can beat anybody. Of course, they could already beat anybody, right? But for them to win 4 consecutive playoff series, I think they need him to be the one to emerge, unless Christian Braun develops into something we don't see coming, but they need one more guy to get a bucket, and I think it's going to be Julian Strawther. All right, so now we could venture out east where there's very few contenders, right? Are we considering the Magic a contender? Are we considering Atlanta a contender? Are we considering Milwaukee a contender? I don't know. But let's start with Cleveland, and to me, this is the obvious one. And it's still perimeter defense, whether guard or wing, right? They still got to worry about protecting Darius Garland on defense. They bring in Lonzo Ball, who is an amazing team defender, and he's not a bad one-on-one defender, but I don't think he's go put Lonzo on him and shut the fire out. I don't think that's really what Lonzo excels at. He excels at being at the right place, at the right time, for boards, for steals, for blocks, rotations. Like, Lonzo's a very, very good team defender, but they don't have that guy to go put on an elite scorer still. Again, whether it's a guard or a forward, Max Strus is fine defensively. DeAndre Hunter, if anything, is average defensively. Maybe Jalen Tyson is ready for a bigger role and he gets an opportunity. I'm not sure. I just look at this team and feel like even though they have the defensive player of the year, I'm worried about their defense, and overall, I'm very intrigued to see how they play this year. Of course, I don't think they're going to have a repeat of last year, of how good they were last year, although when you look at the East, they could probably rack up wins, right? But are they going to be that good again? Big part of their success last year was Ty Jerome, who was playing out of his mind. Lonzo's not really going to replace that, so you lose Ty Jerome and you traded Caris LeVert, which I think was a good trade for them, but that was more on-ball creation. I think they're going to look a little bit different this year. And of course, everyone has the discussion about potentially moving Darius Garland. And I'm looking for something maybe you guys aren't looking for in regards to that. But I think the better Evan Mobley looks as an on-ball player, the more expendable Darius Garland becomes. If you don't need Darius Garland to set up your bigs in the same way, he becomes more tradable. And maybe go Donovan Mitchell at the 1. But if you could trade Darius Garland in the area they are lacking the most, right? Defense on the perimeter. You trade your weakest link for that and maybe upgrade and get an elite wing defender. I'm just saying, I hate that it always comes to that with this team. We always talk about them making trades, but it's just, if Evan Mobley's gonna be this do-it-all player that doesn't need to be set up, that can actually go create, can actually average 5 assists a game one day, then maybe you don't need Darius Garland to be this point guard. Maybe you can trade him for a Jaden McDaniels type, and that just looks like a much better fit all around. But this team won 64 games last year, so it sounds dumb saying that, but I don't know. I'm watching their defense in general, but that wing defense and how do they protect Darius Garland, because Max Strus, again, is fine. Lonzo, fine. DeAndre Hunter, I don't know. Evan Mobley has a lot on his plate, and obviously he has Jared Allen there with them, but their defense is alarming to me, even though we just seen them be good last year. It is what it is. You guys get what I'm saying. At the very highest level, right? They can be a good regular season defense, but at the very highest level, they have players that can be exploited. But moving on to the other obvious contender in the East, the New York Knicks, and looking at the Knicks, their flaw is there's not really a big flaw on this team. If I had to pick one, I would say the collective passing. You know, Jalen Brunson isn't this elite passing point guard, but he's fine. Cat's fine for a big passing the ball. But the wings, OG and Mikal, not being able to really play make is, I guess that would be the one flaw I would say. And that's not a huge flaw when you got Brunson and Cat that are these elite scorers. It is a flaw though, and it kind of goes back to the first team we talked about, which was the Lakers. Brunson, Cat aren't the elite. I mean, Brunson is an elite creator for himself. Like, Brunson is way better than I ever could have imagined. Brunson is amazing, right? But he's not a Luka or LeBron playmaker. So you actually want more pieces around him that are connecting pieces that can get the ball back to him, right? Same thing with Cat, right? Cat is such an elite offensive weapon that you want players that can get him the ball in the right positions. And Mikal and OG are not those players, right? They do what they do and they do it well. But I would say the Knicks, one of their biggest flaws is not having those players that can get the ball from Cat to Brunson or Brunson to Cat, right? Josh Hart is the only real one they have. The comparison that I always make is Steph Curry and James Harden. Now, I'm not saying that Brunson is either of those players, but I always make the comparison because, like, yeah, Andre Iguodala is a much better player than Trevor Ariza or Aaron Gordon, but next to James Harden, you prefer the player like Trevor Ariza or Aaron Gordon that are play finishers, not a connector, right? We don't want to pass you the ball for you to connect it. Whereas someone like Brunson, who is going to be stopped sometime, is going to be trapped and can't see over the defense. Cat, who can't necessarily, dribble and get his own the same way that a LeBron or Luka could. You need players that can help them get the ball back in easier, advantageous positions. And they don't really have those players, although they did add Jordan Clarkson. Interesting. I'm interested to see what that looks like. They also added Malcolm Brogdon, who I feel like fits more in that connecting piece, a good passer. They added Yabusele, who fits more in the play finisher type. So if I had to pick a flaw for the Knicks, I would say their lack of connecting pieces. But overall, I look at this team. This team should be great. They should be great. Going back out west, I think I only have one more contender. Well, besides OKC, I didn't even bring up OKC. Let's just say three-point shooting is their flaw, right? Don't need to focus on them too much, right? But the Clippers, this is a team to me that has no real flaws. Besides age, they have no real flaws. I would say their biggest flaw is leadership. I've said this multiple times now, but Kawhi is not someone that's going to lead you, right? It's not that Kawhi is scared or doesn't want it, but he's not someone that's going to rally the troops, right? In San Antonio, he didn't have to worry about leadership, on the championship team at least. He didn't have to worry about that role. In Toronto, it was Kyle Lowry as the leader of that team. It was guys like Fred VanVleet and even Norman Powell, like guys that have been around it was their team. They were comfortable leading that team, and Kawhi just had to be Kawhi, the assassin that he is. On this particular team, they need Kawhi and or James Harden to lead them, and I just have no faith in that. When things get tough, I don't believe James Harden or Kawhi are going to push their team to that next level. Now, Kawhi could do it with his play, and Harden could do it with his play, by the way, but when I look at this team, the leadership would come from Chris Paul, I guess, but I don't think he's going to be on the court enough to lead this team in that way. And I go to leadership because on paper, Brook Lopez, Zubac, John Collins, Derrick Jones Jr., Kawhi, Nick Batum, Chris Dunn, Bradley Beal, Bogdanovich, Chris Paul. On paper, this is no doubt a championship caliber team. I just don't trust James Harden or Kawhi to lead them there. So I would say that's the biggest flaw of this team, besides age, I guess, right? And actually, I forgot one more Western Conference team, the Minnesota Timberwolves. I would consider them a contender, and I would say they are missing not a connector. I would say they fall into the Nuggets and Warriors category, but I feel like they need it even more. Not because Anthony Edwards is this bad passer, but I think we all would agree Jokic better, Steph better, right? Better at running an offense. I think they need, this summer I proposed a deal centered around Austin Reeves and Naz Reid, something like that. That's not going to happen now, of course. But again, I brought up Darius Garland before. They need one more guy that could just go make something happen off the dribble for them to be a true contender, in my opinion. Maybe you believe they're already there, but I think Jaden McDaniels, we're still, like, he had an improvement last year, but we keep thinking it's going to be like this leap. I think he kind of is who he is, which is a very good player, but I think they need more than that as their third best player. I just believe that. Maybe they can get that without giving him up, but more than likely they would have to give him up to go get that player. Again, I think Darius Garland is the name to watch there. So that is the last true contender. Again, we're not talking about OKC here. Orlando, maybe you guys want to talk about Orlando. Of course, people are gonna say 3-point shooting for sure, but I would say center play. Wendell Carter, Mo Wagner, Goga Batadze. Can one of y'all like really solidify yourself as a starting level center in the NBA? I would say that's where they need to focus or invest in. Maybe some might argue Anthony Black, but I think that center position is extremely important, especially when you talk about pairing that center with Franz and Paolo. That has to be a great fit there. Also, point guard, right? And we know Anthony Black is not a great fit next to Franz and Paolo, but can he manage it? But I would say their biggest flaw is starting level center play. And for the Hawks, I would say off the dribble shooting. I've talked about this a lot recently regarding Zachary Richache, that he needs to take that step as an off the dribble shooter, not necessarily a creator off the dribble, but just someone else that's capable on that team of taking a pull-up three, taking 2 dribble pull-up mid-range jumper. They don't have anyone on that team that does that besides Trae Young. A little bit of Jalen Johnson maybe in the mid-range, but they need one more guy that can get their shot off the dribble. Again, not crazy combos, not go-to scorer, but just be able to catch, 1 dribble, pull-up midi, catch, sidestep, 3-pointer. They need Richache to be that guy to do that for them. So that's what I'll say about the Atlanta Hawks. Their biggest flaw is the lack of off-the-dribble shooting. Now, if you guys want to talk about the Pistons, the Bucks, I get it. Those teams can be better than Atlanta and Orlando, but I think consensus right now that the East will be Cleveland, New York, Orlando, Atlanta. It probably won't end up that way, but that's where we're going to leave it for today. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let me know if I missed anything, if I got it wrong. Let me know the biggest flaws you think. Yeah, let me know in the comments down below. Please like, comment, subscribe. It'll mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am out. Peace.